Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest, somebody who I talked to a couple times recently. The first time was on March 31st, 2017, and then again on May 20th, 2017. His name is Jim Smith. He is the proprietor online of Smiley Face Killers America on Facebook and Drowning Victims on Twitter. And Jim and I have been following these cases of what's known as the Smiley Face Killers, the disappearance of young men who are then later found in water. So on tonight's show, we're just going to follow up on some recent cases. Jim Smith, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me on again, William.
Awesome, man. I'm glad that we finally found the time to get together again. So our last discussions I thought were really worthwhile, so I'm glad that we have an update, and you and I have gone over, and we have many new cases, like 10 recent cases that have occurred since May 20th. You know, today our recording date is, what, August 19th? And so, I mean, I guess we can just get right in there. I mean, we can go through the list real quick and then just go through each one. We've got Lewis Garcia, Corfield out of Wales, Callum Brown, Sam Polis out of Oregon, Dexter Johnson, Exeter, UK, Matthew Johnson, Jarrell White, and then there's some disappearances in Thunder Bay. I've got Ryan Bruning, Anthony Agard, Jacob Hayden Smith. You and I were just talking offline about Paul Swenson in Utah. Utah case is very unusual, at least in my sensibility. And then we had kind of the resolution of a case that has been open for a couple of years, Chase Massner. So where do you want to start?
Oh gosh, anywhere. We can just talk about you start.
Well, let's talk about Lewis Garcia. I mean, what was the story with that case? Lewis Garcia. Do you remember that one?
Oh, of course, absolutely. That was a couple weeks back in New Jersey. Lewis Garcia was out at a bar in Jersey City, Jersey, and disappeared. Family, same deal as always. Couldn't find him, and gosh, I think off the top of my head, 5 days later, he was found in water, I guess on the side of the road.
That's right. It was off of Route 139. He was 27. He was visiting Jersey City at a downtown Jersey City bar, and the classic situation, disappears and then found face down in water.
Yeah, pretty active area in New Jersey, New York. I mean, there's been, gosh, probably over 20 young men in the last couple years in New Jersey, New York.
Well,
have been found.
That's interesting because there was so many came out of Hoboken. You know, my list of Hoboken deaths. There was another Latino guy that came out of there. A
lot of Latino guys up there.
Yeah, it's interesting. They are the ones. I mean, very unusual. There was one guy who, he was a young kid. What was it? Gonzalez? Does that sound right? No, it was. I can't remember his name.
Oh, there's been many. I think you're talking about.
Well, there was Matthew Genovese,
Anthony
right?
Urena.
Yeah, Anthony Urena was far Manhattan. Matthew Genovese came out of Hoboken.
Yes.
There's Andrew Jarzik. Remember when jogging late
at
night?
Yes, absolutely. Been a lot of men down there at that pier. In Hoboken.
It was Michael Ortega was the young kid. Remember who was picked up and then found where this guy was found.
Yes.
I think it was Raymond Ortiz. Yeah, there was a lot of them down there.
That's a tip of the iceberg. There's 15, 20 more stories just like Lewis Garcia. Pretty scary. I mean, I know we were talking about that offline just to bring that up, but it has been pretty quiet. I mean, there's been more, like you said, about 10 victims since the last time we talked, but it's been pretty quiet.
Well,
it was
not
hot. Very many.
Yeah, it was hot. Yeah. Sometime in what was it, May? It was just crazy. Like there were
blazing hot.
Yeah, blazing hot. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I mean, it's still happening. I mean, these other cases are incredible. I mean, it's the same MO. This whole, Lewis Garcia, James Corfield at a festival, right? Young kid, handsome, fits the same body type in Wales. He's 2 hours outside of a nexus of these cases, which is the Bath, Bristol area. We have tons of cases we've discussed earlier about those, and Corfield goes missing, ends up in water. I mean,
immediate.
I mean, how long was he? I don't remember how long he was gone for.
A couple days, not long.
Yeah. But that's another odd one. He was in it was called the Royal Welsh Show, which I guess is a very, common or a well-known kind of country festival. He was 19.
Yeah.
He disappeared 25th of July, and then 5 days later is how long it lasted.
5 days later, just like Garcia, we just talked about 5 days.
Yeah, it's about right. So, I mean, I wonder what the real time of death is on that one, and I hope somebody looks and finds out, the autopsy realizes how long he was dead for, because someone tells me he's probably alive for 3 days. And then,
oh gosh, something else too is that the festival or the concert, it's constant. Like for people listening tonight, that's like, that's a prime hunting grounds for these people where they're finding victims at concerts.
Yep.
Festivals. I mean, many years of this.
Right, festivals or sporting events, right? So you've got Slack, you've got
events.
You've got their most recent guy, Kelleher, out of Boston, all coming out of like busy festivals.
There was a guy in Buffalo about 3 or 4 years ago. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he was at the Buffalo Bills Miami Dolphins game. He got kicked out by security.
That's right,
for being drunk, and they found him outside the stadium in a creek like a couple days later. Just same MO. I mean, they're very scary.
Yeah, really scary. I mean, when Corfield went missing, I was like, this is the kid. I knew from the festival, and when I looked at his picture, I was like, okay, this is a victim. And sure enough, 5 days later, that was it. Those are the uncomfortable ones where these guys somehow have been abducted. Disappeared alone. It's all fits the same.
Hot.
Yeah.
UK. Wales.
That whole western, that whole kind of western side of UK. So it's Essex, Bristol, Bath,
Birmingham.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's
Ireland, some Scotland, some.
There's a few.
Amsterdam, just a recent victim in Amsterdam, a Korean student.
That's right. That's right. He was out.
Lot of bodies in the canals in Amsterdam.
Right. Very suspicious type of deaths. You know what's interesting is very little cases out of downtown London. So in that center area, almost nobody. And I think that coincides or correlates with the amount of CCTV cameras that are in that central London location. And so that's why you almost never hear of any of those cases from people disappearing from that area. But, outside of London, on the rural parts, definitely disappearances.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That's interesting.
Never thought about that.
Well, you think that due to population density and demographics, right, that London should have, 5 or 6 or 10 cases or something, but there's almost no cases in that central area that I can think of. I mean, there was one, what was the guy's name who was East London? It was, oh, God, I remember his face. There's so many cases, but there was a guy who... He was, he fell in the water, some kid. Crap, what was his name? I do have his name somewhere.
In London, huh? No, I haven't seen a lot of London. But, Manchester, over 85 victims. There's been 2 since the last time we talked in Manchester. Same way. There's a ton of cameras in Manchester.
That's true. That's really true. I think his name was, there's Brawny, Swanton. I've been researching those Manchester cases. There's a couple cases there of who are definitely cases. It was Suvak Patel or Subak Pal. Remember Subak Pal? The guy I think his name was Ben Savage. That was the name in East London.
Oh, yes.
Supposedly walked out on a pier, disappeared, and then found in the rock wherever. But
found exactly there.
The other thing, exactly in the spot. I researched the Ben Savage case in great detail when he disappeared, because it was another thing where they had pictures of him going a direction, and there was a massive search, helicopters, boats, the whole bit, really brought out the whole military type stuff, but they supposedly surmised that he walked out to the end of a pier and fell off.
Yeah.
But then, you don't, it's hard to trust these CCTV, camera or the people who explain them, because some of these so-called CCTV camera stories don't make a lot of sense to me. Like, especially Kelleher. They supposedly have a CCTV picture of him falling in the water, but the mother said, you're just trying to tell me that, or whatever. Like, they were trying to convince her. Yeah. So Corfield was definitely this type of SFK type of death. Luis Garcia, definitely same MO, same stuff. And then Callum Brown out of Exeter. I think that was basically the same type of... He was at another bar, Cube Bar, outside of the thing. Last seen in the middle of the night on the Saturday.
At a pub.
At a pub, yep.
Slender, tall.
Slender, tall, fits the bill. You look at the picture, same type of thing. And then his body's found in a river. Bam, you know. Police suspend search. It's the same thing, dude. 12:30 a.m. Callum Brown.
Yeah, a lot of people are noticing over there in the UK. A lot of people talking about it. Not as many as there should be. I mean,
they're definitely talking about it in Bristol. You know, with the cases that happened this year, those 4 cases,
all in the same area.
Yeah, it was Abdul Kader, Jason Gurgle. God, what was the other guy's names? I remember the other guy's face. Jason Gurgle. And there was actually a bunch of interesting posts that were posted after James Gurgle disappeared, because they were talking about, you know, come on guys, there's something weird going on here. But it was, who else was there? Not Henry Burke was out, I think. It was Gurgle, Abdul Kader, Lewis Ball. Remember Lewis Ball?
Oh, yes.
Lewis Ball and Wilkins, Deacon Wilkins.
Deacon Wilkins.
All this year. Yeah, that was all Bath.
Yeah, there's so many people, it's so hard to keep up with. It really is. I mean, it's so sad.
Yeah. Here's one tweet after the Gurgle disappearance. Surely police are looking into why 4 men are turning up dead in Bristol Harbor and River Avon. Afraid of my safety to go into town. You know, and then there's another one. There's nothing, I mean, the police say there's nothing to appear, you know, that's anything suspicious, even though 4 people all walk out of bars and die. And, you know, it's just incredible with this police. Sad news. I wish the public's concerns were taken more seriously. You know, these are all...
I've read things in the UK, in the media, about how people don't want to upset people, so they don't want to even talk about it at the risk of upsetting the
families, or that's an interesting aspect to a lot of these cases. You know, a lot of people I tried to reach out and talk to, they didn't want to talk to me, and I think that's why they don't want to relive it. They don't want to talk. They don't want to think that their loved one could be a victim of a serial killer.
Interesting. Most people find that. I find the opposite. I find
that's interesting.
That a lot of people do want to talk about it.
Because I've reached out to a couple, and they never got back to me. You know, maybe they just
old cases.
Yeah, definitely older cases.
Old cases. I think if it's fresher, you know, I think people are more willing to talk because they know something's not right with the way their loved one was found deceased. Almost always.
Interesting.
In my opinion, but I've never really gone back and interviewed people from older cases. A couple.
Yeah, I mean, some people just have moved on. It's pretty clear, you know. Some of the parents or families, they're, you know, it's just, I guess it's hit or miss. I mean, definitely some of the recent ones in 2017, no problem, but the older ones haven't had trouble with. Let's talk about Sam Pullis out of Oregon. That was kind of an odd case, but it fits the profile. The oddity about Sam Pullis is that he was older, you know. I think he was like 38 or something like that, right?
Gosh, off the top of my head, 31 maybe?
I think he was 38.
38?
38 of East Hempfield Township.
I was just looking up Pennsylvania. That's funny you should bring it up. Sam Pullis was 38. You're right. He was walking down the road. Last time somebody saw him, he disappeared. Found in a creek.
Found in a creek, yeah.
Yep.
Death ruled accidental, but nobody saw anything. But he was. He had a very younger look to him. At least the pictures that I've seen of him. I don't know what he's like now, you know. But at least the pictures online, he fits the bill.
Yeah, he's the oldest. He's the oldest of all the victims. In fact, this year I was just adding it up. After the body that was found yesterday, we'll talk about in a second in Pennsylvania. But that's the ninth. That's the 9th victim in Pennsylvania this year, young man.
Interesting. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, in some of those, the bodies haven't been found yet, right? I mean, that's the other thing, is these people may be in the water, but their bodies just are going to be disappeared. Or...
No, that's 10 people found in water that have been confirmed dead in Pennsylvania this year. 10. Matt Fabian, found in the creek. Dakota James in Ohio River. Brad Varick, Scully River. Sean Weatherwalk, he was found in the woods.
Yep.
Okay, that doesn't. You can maybe leave him out. Nathan Rossi Jr., French Creek. Oh man, French Creek is where the latest victim was found today.
Wow, that's
Jacob
crazy.
Smith. I didn't even realize that until now. The body that was found today or yesterday in Erie, Pennsylvania, is Jacob Hayden Smith, 18 years old. I just posted it. He was found in a French Creek yesterday. That's the same place that Nathan Rossi Jr. was found.
And it's like there's like this like nexus right there outside of Philadelphia, you know? It seems like it's almost like an Reading, Elizabethtown. This whole area kind of seems like there's a lot of disappearances, you know?
Yeah, there was
Where's French
Mark
Creek?
Calhoun,
Yeah.
Ryan in the Scully River, Ryan Fedek, Marsh in water, Sam Pulls in the creek, Avery Ziegenfuss, he was 21 years old, found in the Lehigh River, and then Jacob Smith, that's the 10th this year.
What part of the state is that river in?
It's a darn good question.
Where is French Creek? I wonder where French Creek.
I had a map. I can't put my hands on it right now, but it was pretty spread out. All the bodies this year in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has absolutely been the worst state of 2017 for these drowning abductions. 10 in the water and 5 men that we've been watching still missing.
Right.
So that's 15.
It's outside of PA, so at least there's a French Creek that is close to Reading, you know, right next to where Verrett disappeared.
Yeah, there.
So that makes perfect sense. Outside of
Philly. Multiple bodies where Verrett was found, too. There's been, I think, 2 more since then. Older men that may have been older, just bodies, though, in the same area.
I don't remember that. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It's so incredible. When you really start looking at these, you just realize all these names. I mean, Callum Brown disappeared out of Exeter, but so did Dexter Johnson. You know, he was another one who fit the same profile. I researched Dexter Johnson in detail, and the MO is the same, man. It's the same for all these other cases. But so there were 2 in Exeter this year. You know.
Wow.
Do you know the story of Dexter? Dexter Johnson was wandering around late at night. He was walking away from the river. So he was actually walking away late at night, hanging out at 2 a.m., and then disappeared, and then end up back in the river.
Wow. No, I mean I remember that story. Yes.
Yeah, that's something else. Yeah, the Dexter Johnson was definitely kind of the standard victim. Young guy, found in Exeter Quay, huge search. They know where he was last seen. He was hanging out, drinking beer and stuff. Late at night.
At a bar?
He moved from bar to bar. I think he was supposedly headed home. But, you know, if you look at a picture of the guy, he looks like a young kid victim. But yeah, I mean...
That's interesting.
He's found in an area. If you look at that river there, it's like basically a pool, you know? It's just, there's no movement. It's like a pond. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and the drive from Exeter to Bristol is about an hour and a half. It's 80 miles, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not unthinkable that somebody could be moving around there, you know?
Yeah, maybe. I personally don't believe that. Just because personally, I don't think it's even possible for a man to abduct another man by himself. Just right off. Just by either size. And that, a lot of these victims, they're always under 180 pounds.
Yeah, Dexter Johnson definitely fit that. That's true. I mean... Right?
Almost always. I can look at the weight. If it's a guy that's a lot bigger and he's missing, I usually don't think he's involved. But if it's a guy that weighs under 180 and is, slender, good looking, man, I watch that case and it's usually horrible.
That's interesting. You and I were talking kind of about the Dahmer case offline, and it seems like how did he do it? He would lure men back to his place, with offers, and they would go back willingly. Hey, you want to come back to my place for a drink, then he would drug them, and then it was over, So I think that maybe some of these cases that might be the case. It might not just be a team of 3, but I don't know. I mean, I know some of the other cases in England, the guy gets lured back from one of the you know, dating apps or something like that, and then
Yeah.
they go back and then they get drugged. I mean,
Yeah.
that was-
No, I do think a lot of these men we're seeing, not all, but a lot, the majority of the cases that we follow, it looks to me like people are meeting some people.
meeting some people, yeah.
It does. It's not like somebody being jerked off the street, right? In a van. It's
like those recent,
willingly-
Dakota James and
Yes.
Barrett are both on the
Barrett.
phone. They're both on the phone doing something.
Yes.
Farting around.
So many, you know, dating these online apps,
Yep.
Grindr.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty scary.
That's definitely it's very scary. That's definitely a warning for the listeners. Be careful on those.
Don't be meeting people off websites for.
Well, I was told here in LA that there was a guy who, and this was kind of a case that never really hit the media, but he was on Grindr, you know, rolling people. So he would meet them up to supposedly meet things, but he would beat them up and take their money, you know?
Yeah, I've read that too.
Yeah,
I've seen that too.
You know, that's just an example of what can happen. And Grindr apparently is huge. You know, the headquarters of Grindr is here in LA.
No, I did not.
Yeah. I think somebody bought into them and paid $100 million for a portion of that company. Like a huge number, you know?
Yeah, I've heard stories about it, but it's only been. There are multiple of these cases that men are using online dating apps or websites. iCupid, off the top of my head, an old case for gosh, so many cases. Ward in Indianapolis, that's his name. Anyway, that's what he was supposedly using was iCupid.
Interesting.
And like that's a lead that the police never even their family wanted the police to go to iCupid and get the records, and they wouldn't even do it.
Yeah, I mean, it shows the laziness. Yeah, I mean, I think if these families could get access to some of the CCTV videos and other information, they would probably be able to figure out or get greater details about what happened to their loved ones. You know?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's so true because as much as I do think that these people pick areas like you were saying about London that don't have cameras, that there's a lot of planning that goes into this.
Yes,
that
no question.
They cannot plan for every camera, but if the police don't do their jobs, which sadly seems the case in almost all of these cases, then they don't even check, they don't even look, you know, for a car. You know, the Anthony Urena case, you brought that up earlier. Yep. We were talking about that. You know, they caught 2 cars going down a wrong way street
right
in New York, and nobody even followed up on that. There are so many cameras in New York. There had to be other, and they
pick other pictures of models. That car. Absolutely, yeah. That could have cracked open all those cases too.
And exactly, and somebody told me that they had to go over one of the bridges to get to where they were in Manhattan. That there would be cameras of that, but the police didn't do anything. And he ended up in the river. And
he was in Inwood, right, at the very top of the Manhattan Island, right? And so they had to cross these bridges to get out of it. And the thing about Urena, which was really weird, is that he should have been in the Harlem River, which was the side of Manhattan that he was on, but his body was found in the Hudson, you know, downriver, I think even in Hoboken, which, you know, doesn't make a lot of sense. From where he was, he should have been, you know, by the Harlem River. So... And if he went down the Harlem River, he would have ended up in the East River if he flowed downstream. So that
found on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and I think his family said he was in 3 feet of water. Like his
It was a small creek off of what you just said. Yeah. Had no business being there. Yeah. You know,
Urena is
off the Hudson, a small creek off the Hudson.
Yeah. So that was
same place. Victim number 1, very close to where McNeil.
Right. There was 2 guys.
Very close.
McNeil and the other guy were both found in the Upper Bay at some like water treatment plant, right?
Yeah, very close to that, yes.
I think it was Owl's Head Park. It was Owl's Head wastewater treatment plant, yeah.
Been a victim since there. Looks exactly like Urena in New York. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. It's on my Twitter feed.
Dude, New York itself is a study. It's like Manchester. They should be a study of just New York. It would show people all these similarities, how odd these cases are, and how many people have died in New York that are published that we know of, you know?
you could do a book
on
like
New York,
that they just did on
Spagnola?
Yeah, you could do a book on almost like every state. Almost. I mean, not every state, but you could do a book on New York.
Yep.
New York State,
Pennsylvania,
right? Upstate. It's not just city. New Jersey, Philadelphia, Boston, Atlanta, San Francisco, Manchester, Chicago, Minneapolis. I mean, it's staggering. These people are writing these books, and you could do a book just by state, just like
which is what the
Staggered Pass.
Staggered Pass with Spagnola. Just to let the audience know, a guy published a book that covers all of these types of cases, but just out of Wisconsin. And I think he discounts the idea of a systematic or organized group doing killings. But I think Spagnola said that he thought that 4 of the cases he studied were actually murder. And I haven't read the book, but Jim, you've read it. Do you want to comment on Staggered Paths?
Yeah, I've read it. Author knows what he's talking about. He's ex-law enforcement. He's on A&E. Very nice, good investigator. Looked at all of these cases, or not all. He specifically did. I forget off the top of my head how many, but he makes excuses for some obvious evidence. Kind of glosses over some coincidences. Right. Does a lot of stuff about lacrosse cases that are Gannon and Gilbertson wrote about in Drowning Forensics. These are cases that have been covered multiple times by multiple reporters. Anyway, he gives it a new spin. Very skeptical. Leaves it open to interpretation that something did happen in 4 of the cases. What I found, it's very well done, but what I found is that the coincidences and victims that he tries to say that are accidents are pretty big coincidences. Men leaving the same bar in lacrosse. I mean, pretty big coincidence. Also leaves out and cherry picks and ignores.
Does he mention GHB or in any of the cases?
Yeah, and he brings up some good things that a lot of that stuff hasn't been found, or that it could have been that maybe the kids were taking it. He suggests.
Very unlikely. That's very rare.
Well, it was built for bodybuilders, and people do take that stuff voluntarily in college. That is true. And he brings that up in the book and discusses it about what it makes you feel like and why people would do it. I don't believe that, right? But he doesn't. He leaves out a lot of cases that I could debate that would prove that there is something going on since then. There's been multiple cases in lacrosse since. Right. Shalim Augustine, right? It was like 2 years ago. He was found upstream. Right.
I mean, these guys are found. There were 2 in lacrosse that were found in the same dumping spot off of the Mississippi River. It's in the slough, or this area where there's no way they could have got there if they fell in the Mississippi upstream. It's just not plausible. So.
And he brings that up, but he tries to say that it's just alcohol, for a lot of these, that a lot of these people are drunk. And yes, a lot of victims are leaving, but there's a lot of people who aren't anywhere near a bar that end up in the river.
But if you look at lacrosse, they would have had to have traveled hammered, 20 blocks to get down to where their bodies were found, and then somehow fall in the river and drown. So they were sober enough to get down there, and then, Did he bring up any of the kind of male cruising areas or Riverside Park or anything like that?
No. There was a recent a missing man who was missing down there. There haven't been a lot of bodies found in Riverside Park down in Lacrosse, but that
that was a nexus point.
Yeah, cruising spot. I mean, it was 2. They had a couple victims' personal belongings found at the statue of that Indian in that park.
That's right.
But the River Watch, they Lacrosse, because their community was so involved, they started a River Watch, and what it did was it stopped the murders from happening for the most part, and all they did, the murders didn't stop, they just moved. They just moved to Eau Claire, next door. They started finding bodies, but the murders in Lacrosse have started a little bit here and there.
Interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. So that's I think it's Spagnola, Staggered Paths is the book, so...
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Very well written.
So getting back to our list, one of the interesting cases that was recent was Matthew Johnson out of Kansas. He was an African-American guy, 26, gets off gets off a party bus and disappears. This was
terrible, right?
Yeah, fits the bill.
I'm glad
young
you brought
guy.
that up.
Yeah, and they did a massive search for that guy. They did a massive search, and he was among friends, which is odd. So all of his, you'd have to think either all of his friends were in on it or he got disappeared. He was down late, which is 3:30 a.m. He was out very late in Kansas City.
Yeah, from a party bus. That's a new one. I mean, I immediately knew when I saw this case when he was, pronounced missing. Right. And once I heard the details, I thought, wow, that screams this. And I was right, unfortunately. And, there was a pretty big part of what's even worse was about him calling his brother at 3:30 in the morning, and he was talking on the phone to his brother, saying that he was lost, which that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But there's multiple cases of people calling their family members in the middle of the night, and that's the last phone call, and then they end up in the water. And same thing. I mean,
he was pulled from the Missouri, I think 3 weeks later. A massive search 3 weeks later, which, it's a little late, actually. The average body rises 5 to 10 days or something. So
this time of year, pretty warm.
Yeah, warm. Yeah, July, June.
The warmer the water.
Yeah. So that's a very unusual case.
I mean, they had to either be watching him, right? People he was with were involved, or it was random. He was out and he was grabbed.
Right. Yep. Like somebody just saw an opportunity and bam, or he was drunk, or he thought he was lost, and somebody came in. Hey, you need a ride? You need a ride?
Need a ride?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. He said that his family that they thought he said that he had hit a mailbox and that he had ditched his car, and that he told his brother that he was lost and walking down the railroad tracks, and they thought that he just fell off the bridge. That was what police theorized. Great police work.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy. That's and here's another one. I mean, here's another African American, unusual that two black guys. This was Jarrell White in South Carolina. Kind of same thing. At a party, 4th of July, disappears, ends up in the water. Yep. Yep.
So many African Americans. In Staggered Past, they bring up the author in Milwaukee. I forget the gentleman's name. He's a black columnist.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. I've come across this stuff. I can't remember his name either.
He wrote an article. I post a lot. It's about the killer that no one wants to talk about. Yeah. You can Google it. Yep. He makes a great case about the young man in Milwaukee being murdered, but he says that the reason why it is a serial killer that he thinks is because there's no black victims. And this guy sees everything through a racial lens. Right. But what he doesn't know is that there are
black guys. Jelani Brinson? Yeah. But I would say it's probably equal to the population. If black guys are 10% of the population, it's probably 10% of the case, maybe 5. Or there's definitely a mix of ethnicities, mainly white. But, all the Indian guys went missing recently. There's been Asian dudes in UK. There's been a few. You talked about a case in Vancouver, a couple Asian dude, like Chinese guy or something, like Korean guy. Remember, what was the Korean guy out of Vancouver?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's funny you should say that, but people say that in drowning forensics that they theorize that these are cells doing that, and in my opinion, what I do backs that up. Right. And if you look at the data the way we do, you can see different variations of victims in certain areas, right? And what you were just saying, like Upper New York City has more Hispanic victims, right? Yep. Down here in Georgia, or in the South, I mean, it's a lot of black victims, more so I would say down here. You see more Asian victims on the West Coast, San Francisco, Oregon. Anyway, I just had to point that out. So that's never been said, I don't think. Right.
God, yeah, that's an amazing one. I mean, this guy, Gerald White found in a pond. Like this, like totally calm
Leaving a
pond.
party.
Yep, leaving a party, 4th of July, at a pond, bam. How long? I don't remember how long he was missing for.
Like 2 days.
2 days, right?
Not
So,
long.
not long. Yeah, that's something else. So then the next one is, you want to talk a little about Thunder Bay? You've noticed some cases up there. That Thunder Bay is in Canada. I don't remember those cases. I seem to have missed those. But do you mind talking about what happened in Thunder Bay?
Yeah, this is a very strange phenomenon that's going on there. I guess it's an Indian reservation. It's on the other side of Wisconsin and Minnesota, in Ontario, so not that far. And there's been 8 victims recently this year.
That's incredible. It's off of it's Lake Superior, right? It's kind of the north-west part of Lake Superior.
Yes, and the victims are being Indian.
Indian victims, right?
And this has been going on a while, but it's only gotten a lot of attention lately. And there's been so many cries of racism that people are killing these kids for racism. I absolutely disagree. That somebody wrote on a train recently where one of the victims was found or nearby where this train runs, that is said somebody had written on the train, "I killed those kids."
Interesting. I didn't hear that. I vaguely remember coming across the story. I just didn't research it that much. I mean, and they're all Native American Indians, all found in water, right? Like all young men found in water.
All young men, yeah. There was a survivor. He said that he was jumped by men and thrown in the river. But this has been going on for years. It's not just this 8. It's only been 8 in a short time span, which is what gets people's attention when this happens.
Right. And that's a good drive from Minneapolis. I mean, it's north of Wisconsin and Minneapolis, some of these epicenters of other deaths, but it would take a while. You'd have to get apart. Yeah, it's definitely remote. Thunder Bay is remote from everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, you would think that the people doing that are people living there.
I would think so too. Yeah, that's
right?
Remarkable, yeah. Yeah, somebody learned this MO, right? Somebody learned the technique or whatever, or what these other people around the world are doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you bring that up. I listened to your interview. I thought it was great. You just did.
Oh, thanks.
And you were saying stuff that nobody else has said, and I find it funny that almost every crime scene I've ever gone to for these cases are all places that only a local person would know.
All right. Yeah. That's true. I mean, it seems like these people know the CCTV. They know the areas where you can go to have, be alone with like a body to put in the water or something.
Privacy.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. And if you look at some of those cases of like the suspicious cases in downtown La Crosse, it seems like there are people around in those bars who are around these young men who seems hyper suspicious. Driving around in trucks, following people. Who work in bars nearby. Yeah, so it's,
I think they live there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I do.
Yeah. Well, what about Anthony? We know one. We followed a guy by the name of Ryan Bruning, and he ended up being found alive, which was one of the few cases where somebody fits the profile and actually, actually makes it back.
Yeah, that's really nice, though. That's really nice when that happens, but it's nice to be wrong.
Yeah.
He disappeared for a while though in La Crosse. I mean, that's big red flags.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely had him tagged as somebody who wasn't going to make it.
Yeah, I'd like to know what happened to him.
Yeah, me too. I wonder where he went. And
you just never can tell. People want privacy, and the story just fades away. You always wonder what's going on.
Yeah, here's another one. This guy out of Manchester, Anthony Agard, a older guy, 46, disappears, ends up in the canal,
Yeah, going out to get some food or something. And, that's another one of those cases where you would suspect they were meeting somebody.
Right. I mean, and weird thing, he's having a text conversation with his wife in the middle of the night, 10:30, 11. Then his mobile phone goes off, very standard stuff with a lot of these cases, and it's never been seen, and then he gets found in water.
Yeah, pretty scary. That's a very active cell.
Yeah, so
In my opinion,
well, I agree with that. Yeah, Manchester. Yeah.
People who live there are doing this.
Oh, I agree,
Um,
no doubt. And then we talked about Jacob Hayden Smith, Pennsylvania 18. Where did he go missing? Did you remember? Jacob Hayden Smith, what was that one?
No, they didn't really say in the article. It was said it was Erie, Pennsylvania, that he had lived. Apparently, was living with multiple places. Who knows what that means? With friends. He's 18 years old. I mean, still.
He said the body had been in the water for a brief amount of time. So how long was he missing? And
Don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, so I guess that's
one. At least that they haven't released yet.
Yeah, that'll be one of the cases we'll have to follow up on. And then the Paul Swenson case out of Utah. That's a weird case too.
Very
you want
weird.
to talk about that one?
Yeah, Paul Swenson was a missing man. He's a married man. I guess in South Salt Lake City. I wasn't sure. I've been following this case off and on. He went missing in July and hadn't been seen. No reason. People didn't know what happened to him. He just vanished. And a couple weeks later, he was found in the creek. They found his vehicle abandoned. I guess pretty close by, but he ended up being found in the creek like weeks later. The guy has the look. He's 30 years old.
Right. Yeah. He looks like a victim. It's very.
Oh, totally. And not a super active state that I've seen.
Yep.
But there have been victims in Utah and in Salt Lake City specifically. A couple. Right. Yeah.
What about this De La Pena case? I missed that one. You were talking about that. What was that case? I don't remember that one.
Yeah, there was a young man last week found in the ocean down in Biloxi, Mississippi. He was 24 years old. Daniel De La Pena.
Uh-huh.
Biloxi's one of those places that I've been keeping my eyes on. I've seen it. There's been a couple victims. Mississippi's had a handful of victims. I would say over 10 young men. Yeah, but Biloxi specifically has had a couple. There was one, I guess probably 2 years ago. A black gentleman was staying at the Hard Rock Cafe. He was leaving a concert. He was the Young Jeezy concert. He was supposedly with some people, never found him. His wife was at the hotel. He never came home. They found him in the Mississippi River, where it feeds into the bay there.
Interesting.
And so this new victim, Daniel De La Pena, was 24 years old. He's a half mile from where the Hard Rock Casino is down there, and they found him. They found him in the ocean. It's all where the casinos are, where people are drinking and partying nonstop. So this is definitely a place that I watch. I was just down there. I thought I'd go check it out. I went and investigated where this young man was found. His sister had just called in him missing and the day he was found. And so he had been missing, I guess, like 4 days. Don't know why he was there. The place where I went, it was very private, no cameras. It's near the casinos, but this is an area where tourists go or you go to fish. And where he was found, there's a bunch of charter fishing boats right there. So, pretty suspicious. I haven't heard. I'm still waiting to hear about what his cause of death was and more about the story.
And this was just like a week ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, last week. Yeah.
That's right.
Daniel De La Pena.
That's right. That's incredible. Yeah. That's
kind of like Panama City, Florida, though. Where I've talked about another
couple cases. Yeah.
Yeah, handful of cases there, handful of cases in Biloxi, handful of cases in, spring break destinations.
Right. Yeah. Wild. Yeah. So, we went through 10 cases. There was a recent kind of update on a case that you and I have both followed, Chase Massner. Do you want to kind of discuss what happened to him?
Yeah, Chase, I don't think anybody knows quite yet, but case I thought possibly was involved. I've followed from the beginning. I helped search for Chase. It's near where I live.
This is Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Atlanta, Georgia. Yep. Chase was a veteran. He disappeared, but they ended up finding his body behind that or underneath the house where the guy he was living with, Brad. I forget his name. He ran from the police. The police just found him. But the only reason
main suspect, yeah.
The only reason that he was even found, I mean, again, this is a case of lazy police work, right? The guy, his body was at the place that he was a suspect. The police refused to listen to the family or do anything because it's a missing young male, which is why all these young men don't get any help because they're just not taken seriously. And it was basically his family and friends who kept pushing it for 3 years until Nancy Grace, God bless her, took the case. And she broke the people. She broke the story. She did the work that the police should have done 3 years ago. Pretty awesome stuff.
That's cool. And one case I wanted to bring up was Jesse Ross. He was a guy who disappeared out of the hotel in, I believe it was Chicago, right? He was a guy, young kid, at I think it was a Model UN conference. Walked out of a hotel late at night where another guy had disappeared. Whose name was, I think, Matt Stupakis. He had a Greek name. But they both came out of that same hotel. But the reason I'm bringing up is because True Crime Garage did a 2-part series about his disappearance. So it was interesting to see this kind of case pop up again.
I listened to that.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought it was good.
I did too. I thought it was pretty good. They did a lousy job on the West Memphis 3, but they did a pretty good job on Jesse Ross.
Yeah. Ignoring evidence, though, I will. If there's one criticism, I will say, it's amazing that kid.
I think it was. What was it? I think it was in a Sherlock Holmes book. That's the main problem of any investigator is ignoring facts. If you ignore facts, your conclusions are going to be wrong. So, it's interesting. But we're coming to the end here, Jim. We've actually done 47 minutes. It went fast. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Can you tell the audience again where they can reach your stuff and follow the cases you've been following?
Oh, absolutely. My group on Facebook, which is Smiley Face Killers America, and I have Drowning Victims or Smiley Face Cold at Twitter, which all I do is post victims, right? I try to show people what I see through my eyes and to point out that this is happening a lot more than it's being reported.
Yeah, I totally 100% agree with you on that, no question. So, but Jim, I really appreciate your hard work on this topic. You've really been the person that I've seen the most who really is on point in following these cases. So the audience really should go follow your stuff. Go follow him on Facebook. Go follow him on Twitter and follow these cases. It's just a remarkable phenomenon that the police really aren't keying into, at least on a nationwide or international level. So, I'm just glad that you're there, Jim, following these cases. So God bless you for that.
No, appreciate you. God bless you. Thanks for helping get the word out and being such an activist and helping educate people about what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, man. All right. God bless. Let's do this again. Maybe we'll meet 3 months now down the road online again and do another update.
After the movie's documentary.
I know. It's close. It's very, very close. All right, Jim. God bless.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.